on. Do you hear my throat? It's making me
That's okay, my hearing aids are squeaky. Good afternoon and welcome to our virtual event. We're so glad you joined us this afternoon. As you can see, it's me and Marina sitting here with you, not Eric and Jake. But they're going to join us real shortly. We just thought we'd take a few minutes to give you a little update on what's happening at Stratton and Company over the last few weeks. Many of you know that we came back to the office, and I have to say it's kind of nice to be here. We are still doing virtual appointments for those of you that feel like you want to remain at the house. But if you're coming in, Grace is doing a great job keeping everything sanitized, and we're having one client at the time. It's working out really great. I know Marina's got some exciting news for us about some things that are in the works. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. And of course, we are doing another virtual live event for us here at the office, but hopefully coming up the end of spring, beginning of summer, we will be able to have our live events again where we're all in the same room. Of course, we will practice doing that safely, but we do hope to get back to that very soon. We do miss seeing all of you. It is just not the same. We miss our clients. It's been, about a year now since we had events with everyone. So we do miss you, and we hope you all are doing great, and we are doing all that we can to get back and do that safely, where we can all meet. But we are having, like she said, meetings in the office. We're here for your friends, family, any way that we can help, we're here to help, and we're glad to do that. So hopefully you shared this with some of your friends and family today so they can meet us and get to know a little bit about Stratton and Company and Heyday and what we do.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity for you to let your friends and family know. And you know, people are looking for things to do during COVID, and sometimes it's nice to just switch on and see something different, but besides the same old TV that you watch all the time, or, you know, just stop watching the news and just watch more Stratton and Company. That's my philosophy. So we're going to have to get busy and get more and more things out. I know we have an opportunity coming up that we're going to do a segment on education
with the famous Miss Cindy Collins
and the also famous Jacob Blair. He's going to help us, and we're going to do a Annuities 101, Annuities and Riders 101. I know most of you that are clients have been through some form of that. In the past, we used to do events for it every so often, so you got a refresher of what an annuity really is, how it actually works, and actually all the benefits of owning one, as well as some of the pitfalls if you buy it incorrectly. So I'm looking really forward to that. I think it'll be great, and we always have good success with it. So be sure when that pops up to invite your friends and your family, and let's have some fun and some education together.
Yeah, we'll be getting an email out about that, and that will be in about 2 weeks. So, well, I think Eric and Jake are ready, so we're going to turn it over to the professionals.
Absolutely. Okay, guys, it was great seeing you.
Thanks.
All right, we're up. Come on.
Oh.
All right, hey everybody. Most of you know I'm Jake Blair, and this is, what do you like your title to be? President, Fancy Man, New Shaved Beard, Eric Stratton. And we're going to talk with you today about how to navigate some of the uncertainties that are going on in the world. And I guess before we get started, thanks for coming in. I know we stole you away from the TPC golf tournament today, and so Eric's making a special appearance, and as soon as we're done here, I'm sure he'll be peeling out of the parking lot to go watch some golf.
I will. My son's favorite golfer tees off at 12:15. My son's favorite golfer, my least favorite golfer. So we got that, but
12:15. Got it.
It's important time to have these kind of talks because weirder times than we've seen in a while.
I'd say so. Is there any one thing that's had your focus lately?
I think the one thing that's had my focus lately is that everything is distracting me. I feel like I'm standing outside and I see this huge cloud of storms on the horizon, but I'm not sure which way the wind's blowing. And I think that probably most folks feel like that now. I think that we could, it's going to be an interesting year, but what we do know is that things just can't go up all the time.
I think that's pretty reasonable. Yeah, I mean,
It's not how math works.
And this week, one of the numbers that's been going around that's a little troubling is our debt is now bigger than the whole GDP of the country. I'm sure that's exciting news for you, but do you have any thoughts on how that might affect retirees or how they should view that?
I think that more than ever, and this is a bad time to say this, but more than ever, it's the least best time. Least best, right? The least best time to stay home. So as soon as the COVID restrictions are lifted, as soon as we have clearance, I know I got my vaccination last night. Got on the line at Winn-Dixie. So it came from Winn-Dixie, so I'm not sure how good it is. But apologize to all the Winn-Dixie employees.
There goes our Winn-Dixie sponsorship.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But as soon as we can be clear, it's time to be active. Because kind of like, if you think of how like the debt relates to our economy, it's kind of like how age affects retirees, in that each year the likelihood of you not enjoying your savings is growing because of a reduction in your just physical mobilities. Okay? And this is not something that you think about as a young person. Okay? But if you get older, you start thinking about these things. So redeem the time. Make sure that you're planning now for what you're going to do this year, next year, and the year after that. And remember, if you're a client of ours, we've insulated you from most of these things. And that doesn't mean we shouldn't be checking and rechecking and solidifying our strategies, but I feel like we're prepared for this.
Okay. And I don't know if I've been told now this week that I'm now old, so you can't use me as the young person example anymore.
That doesn't work.
All right, that's fine with me, but that's just what I've been hearing. But we're just going to be walking through some of the common topics and kind of one by one talking about how they could affect retirees. And the next one is some of the jobs have come back, but there's still a pretty high unemployment compared to what it was. Do you see that affecting retirees in any way? I mean, maybe having to help family members, or do you think it's all going to come back? Do you have some good news for us?
Well, no, I don't have any good news. I don't do good news. I work in retirement, and I work in retirement risk. The last thing you want is someone who is managing your retirement savings to be optimistic. Okay?
That's fair.
So I'm an eternal bear in that sense. But if you are going to have to help your children or your friends or family or whoever, maybe even your parents, you need to have a plan for it, have a strategy for it. That's especially what we do. You have those type of situations, call us. We'll be happy to help you with that. Set up some pre-saving for these types of things. That way that we allocate the dollars, we separate them from our travel funds, we separate them from our savings and our emergency funds. When they occur, they don't disrupt our life. My beef, my general beef in retirement is not that what people choose to do. I say this all the time, and I know it doesn't come off great. But I legitimately don't care what people do with their money. It's not mine. It's not my place to care. What I care about is whatever they choose to do with it, that they do it in the most efficient format that least affects the rest of their life. Okay? Too often we see people who will plan a vacation, they'll have a kid have some trouble, they'll cancel the vacation to help the kid. All that does is breed all manner of problems into your life. It's better just to separate the help kid money from the go on vacation money. So you can do both. How do you do that? You prepare in advance. Okay? How do you do that? You have a large and sustainable stream of guaranteed income so that you can address these types of issues when they come. And so I'm all in on people helping folks. I'm just wanting you to be prepared to do it.
And if it doesn't come up, you just have an extra vacation fund waiting on you, right?
The worst case scenario is your money is sitting right where it would have been sitting anyway.
Right. So, and I know we're picking up on a conversation from our talk a few weeks back, but when you're talking about separating these concerns, Can you go into a little bit exactly what you mean? I mean, you're talking individual, actual bank accounts for different concerns, goals, and things retirees are thinking about.
I think it's different for each person.
Okay.
I think it manifests different for each person. I think that some folks will come in and to your office and they'll hand you a spreadsheet of everything that they're going to be doing. Okay. And then some folks will come into your office and they'll just have one big giant savings account, like beef stew.
All my money is here.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that you need to go through the process of identifying the risk that bother you most and make sure that you've allocated for them in a fashion to where if you set up, maybe you need to set up 3 different risk funds. One's for helping my parents, one's for helping my kids, one's for a new roof. Okay? And maybe if any single risk impacts the remainder of your financial situation, it needs to be prepared for separate from the financial situation. Okay? And generally speaking, these impacts are either emotionally driven or some sort of human behavior that's not mathematical. Okay? The same thing with your vacations. If Christina and I were thinking about a new home, been thinking about a new home for 10 years, okay?
Right.
Telling on myself a little bit. So we're thinking about a new home. Well, if we wanted to go on vacation for spring break with our children, if that money, the new home money and the vacation money was in the same account, it would be really hard to pull the trigger on that trip. Well, we only have, 8 more years with our kids at home. So you don't want to burn up one of those years with your children missing a spring break trip because you just had your money set up wrong.
You could have done both, but you didn't know.
Most definitely. So if we set up the travel fund separate from our new home fund, then we can have clarity. We can know what's out in front of us. The way that our clients that do the best with their plan is by separating monies into individual savings accounts where they pre-save for trouble, or we create a future expense as if it's a guarantee these things are going to occur. So when they do occur, we're prepared, or somewhat prepared at least, as prepared as you can be looking out in the future with your crystal ball. And if they don't occur, we have more money to figure out what to do with. And that's not a bad problem.
Not a bad problem to have.
So going a little bit deeper on that subject, I think that that's really important, especially for people who are annuity owners, okay? Because I read a survey not so long ago that of the people who had fixed annuities with guaranteed lifetime income rider benefits, meaning a stream of payments, much like a pension for the rest of your life, guaranteed in place, or somewhat guaranteed, or guaranteed with some floor and ceiling, but a secure income for the rest of their lives. 89% of these people weren't even taking distributions.
Interesting.
Now, 100% of my people are taking distributions. If you're not taking distributions, we are calling you to harass you to take your distributions, okay? Or you're taking distributions from some other account and you're planning to take distributions from this account in the future. So we are the 11%, okay? It's my view and my vision that we would impact that 89% to get it closer to like 40 or 50.
Sure.
I think that the public narrative on annuities would totally change if people just use them, because if you look at the satisfaction scores on people who are taking income from their annuities, it is just astronomically high.
Well, very few people would be unhappy with a raise.
Right? You know what? They're paying me too much this week at work. I'm very biased. I have gotten calls like that
Right.
before. People are mad about how much they've earned, and I'm like, well, I'm sorry.
That's a better problem to have to fix, right?
Yes.
So, and we hear stories on our side too, where people come back from a vacation and they were at the store downtown where they were at, debating whether or not to buy something. They knew they had the income. It's just learning a new habit, and they'll say, "Well, what would Eric say?"
Right.
And they come home and they show us the nice photo book or whatever it was. But
It makes you feel good. I mean, I like that. I would prefer that we had them in such a good place they wouldn't have to have that thought. But we'll take any of the attaboys we can get.
Maybe the first year, yeah. Then it moves. It gets better and better as it goes. But basically what you're trying to do is just give the income a purpose, right? You're looking around, you're seeing these storms, you don't know what's coming. If you know what you're trying to do, it keeps you on track.
I think anytime you're going on vacation or somewhere, it helps to have a map.
Sure. And one of your favorite stories that maybe some people have heard is the later on in the vacation where you stop spending money because you want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah. For the people who are willing to push through the pain and go ahead and pay for a trip and go on a vacation.
That kind of pain.
Yeah. Pain of spending in retirement, just you saved to spend in retirement. You get on a trip, you're going through the trip, you're having a good time. About halfway through, you look at your mobile phone and you see your accounts or something, and you see that something's lower because you had spent money on it or something like that. What I call it is like that end of vacation spending guilt. So about halfway through the vacation, on day one, you're on this cruise ship and you're planning on buying this art. On day 6, that art looks expensive. Okay? And I cannot tell you how many stories we get from folks who come back and they're like, I wanted to do this and I couldn't, blah, blah. These things can be prevented if we just plan for them. We need to plan for everything we can plan for. If we can plan for it, plan for it. We need to overplan our retirement.
Just personally, you mean?
Just personally.
Everything we want to do needs to be laid out. And I know some people find that to be kind of an intimidating process, or it sounds like a budget. But I mean, like you were saying, the people who we've had grab that and go, we have a hard time dragging them into the office because they're using their travel accounts and they're they're prepared if the kids lose a job already. So they kind of take that process back from us. Is that what you're seeing as well?
Yeah, budgets are to keep you from spending.
Right.
That's the opposite of what we're trying to do.
Right.
Now, I have to give anybody a pass on the last year. It's been weird. And, all the political turmoil and now the economic turmoil and cryptocurrencies and, electric cars, and all manner of things. There's any sort of distraction. In today's society, it's a distraction economy. If you feel like you need to be distracted, someone is willing to profit by distracting you.
Right. And
my job is to keep you focused. Because in retirement, each year that you age, you're losing a little bit of that mortality. You're gaining a little bit of that morbidity. You're losing a little bit of that activity level. My job is to preserve that as long as we can through action.
So you're transitioning me back onto the path here, where another one of the common concerns that people have had lately is what if something happens to the currency, right? And I wouldn't ambush you with that question, but I know you've researched that in the past and like to talk about that. What happens if something happens to the dollar? I mean, whether or not you can predict that, I'm not asking, but just, I know you've studied kind of in other places how that looks. And I was wondering if you could talk about that and kind of ease that concern a bit.
So nobody can predict what's coming next or what's going to happen. No one can. I cannot tell you what's going to happen when or if the U.S. dollar is affected by our national debt or any other thing.
Right.
Okay. What I can say for sure is that in a consumption economy, there are some truths that we can hold on to, okay? And that is, we'll use, if you're in Florida here, the most popular grocery store is Publix. And I'll use Publix as our analogy here, okay? The way Publix makes money is by selling groceries to consumers, okay? So if we had a devalued currency, Publix still needs to be able to sell groceries to their consumers, okay? And they need more than 2% of the consumers to be able to buy groceries to be able to remain being Publix.
Right.
Okay? So if you think of it like this, that if you are here on the socioeconomic level and your neighbor is here, okay, and you have $1 million and they have $500,000, okay, if I cut it by 25%, okay, they go down to like 375 and you go down to 750, okay, so you're moving in concert with your neighbors. When you get to the Publix cannot sell you groceries for more than you can afford to pay for them. They cannot do that and continue to be Publix.
Right.
So what we've seen happen in other countries, Brazil there's a very good This American Life episode from back in 2010 or 11 about Brazil when this occurred. It's twice now over in Brazil. And the way that it works is just like I described. In one case, and this was in the before technology and pricing, automatic pricing came in, people would start shopping on aisle 1 while they were repricing items on aisle 2 and be moving across the store like that.
They were racing the sticker guy.
Racing the sticker guy, yeah. So what I will say to you is that if they came in tomorrow and they said the U.S. dollar is worth 25% what it was yesterday, it would affect your neighbors the same as it affects you. You literally would not experience a difference other than math.
The number would look smaller.
It would look smaller.
But
Honestly, it probably look larger because what they usually do is they increase the number by decreasing the value by through saturation,
sure,
quantitative easing, and it will look better, but be worse. But as a consumer, you won't experience a difference.
Got it. So that makes sense. You're kind of, it moves like in concert with each other. Everybody's experiencing the same issue together.
Now, if you had competing currencies, that's one thing. And, could we get to a place where something like that could happen? Sure. But you would have to, that's not a tomorrow problem.
Right.
Okay. Right now we have the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency. There's no real legitimate challengers. The Chinese economy is like the size of Texas. I'm not that concerned about this issue.
It's a little more of a news story.
I wish that our country would do something novel like just pay the debt. If your credit card bill, user tip, if your credit card bill comes due at the end of the month, pay it. So I wish we would do that, but we don't do that anymore. So I don't know what happens with that. But I do know that as long as they want people to be consuming items, and in order for the manufacturing nations to stay profitable, they need consumers. And as long as the consumption nations want to stay profitable, they need consumers. And we are the consumers. Okay?
I think we're going to continue to be as well. I was looking at it this morning with the stimulus checks coming out. What are people doing with them? And I don't know if you have a guess, but
I'm sure they're going to be spending like crazy.
There's a pretty
you give some. Let me tell you, one of the biggest things in society that is weird is how even smart people cannot deal with lump sums of money. If you want proof of this, look no further than the mirror, because when everything was stable when we used to live in the pension world, where you retire, you get a pension, your paycheck keeps coming, you're doing well. Now when you retire, we'll give you Social Security and a big giant pile of money. And you're like, what do I do with it? And your first inclination is to invest it, to grow more of it, instead of use it. And the reason you saved up your whole life was so you could get here to use it. Lottery winners, the people who take the stream of payments do much better than the people who take the lump sum. We don't do well with lump sums of money because if you get to 60 years old, you've probably, outside of an inheritance, you've never had a lump sum of money before. You had like your 401k, but your 401k is out there, but it's not affecting your day-to-day life.
Right. You're not living on it, taking withdrawals.
Right. So, we don't do well with lump sums of money.
Especially not the very first time.
Not the first time.
Right.
We don't do anything well the first time.
Right. So the stream of payments on the lottery, maybe they blew the first one or two of them, but there's more to come.
I love the concept of annuities because when I mess up this month, I don't have to say no. I have to say no for another few days.
Right. Until the first.
Until the next payment comes.
Right. So we can put the currency conversation aside. It seems like that's not a major concern. But what do you see with, maybe the political, I'd say, gridlock of just everybody undoing the previous people's plans?
I'm pro gridlock.
Okay, I was going to walk towards that.
Yeah.
Tell me what you mean.
I would like them to be able to do as little as possible.
Okay. So you think...
The less they change, the better off you are.
Why is that?
Because we don't have a history of any of them changing anything for the better.
Okay. Less action is better than bad action?
We were unlucky in the early 2000s where we did the Bush tax cuts, and then 9/11 happened. I think you know the data.
It was about 6 weeks after it was signed in.
Yeah. So we never rolled back those tax cuts, although we dramatically increased spending. And the ball was rolling. And so now we've had literally 20 years. Everybody's had their turn. We've had 8 years at least during that time of Republican leadership and 8 years of Democratic leadership during that time. And exactly 0% of them have paid any of the debt. Any of them. They hadn't even tried. So, no. I agree. The less they can do, the better off your life is. Just that's not speaking to social issues. I'm speaking specifically to math. Mathematically, it's not an arguable point.
Right. And because the question I was going to kind of make a scenario up of is, if it's always going to change every 4 or 8 years to the opposite, how do you plan for the future in that case if you don't know what it's going to look like?
Well, I mean, I won't go down a deep rabbit hole, but there's something called a linear regression model, where basically it's called regression to the mean, where basically everything kind of finds its own, everything averages out over time. What we like to do is we like to talk about our side when it's in the positive category and talk about the other side when it's in the negative category. But over the long run, it all evens out. It's there's not much there.
Right. And that reminds me of kind of like
Now, the other issues, I don't touch them.
We'll get back on the path.
Not my deal.
Right.
I do math for a living.
Right. It makes me think of the news story now about how gas prices are going up so much. But really what happened was nobody was driving for a while, and it came right back to where it was before. We can talk about how it raised 70 cents in 6 months, but it's right back where it was, right?
This is a distraction economy. Anything that we can do to keep you distracted is what we try to do. It's how we profit these days.
So I know you said you might not have any good news, but when you do have clients that are staying focused on their plan, and even though they don't know any better than anybody else what's going on, can you talk a little bit about how much differently they're handling today's situations? Do you see a difference?
Ask me that question a little bit different.
So we don't.
I don't think there's a really good answer for that because I think it's so personal.
Okay.
I think the last year has been so bad that nobody could have handled it right.
Right.
I think we ignore the last year and go back to 2019 and start from there.
And by that you just mean
I wouldn't. We're trying to raise children. Okay. Now, my strategy is unique, where I just thought whatever Sam Macklin does, I try to emulate him. I see how his kids turn out. It works great for him. That's my strategy. Everybody has to have their own approach. But if your kid does, one thing I've learned from watching Sam and watching him with our youth group or our church and talking and how he's treated me in my life, I'm sure he just loves this because I'm embarrassing him.
I know, and for everybody, he's about 3 feet away, so he is hearing this.
So when you see someone make a decision or take an action that's totally outside of their character, his move is generally to ignore that. Okay?
It's an outlier.
It's an outlier. And having a rough day, maybe they need more rest, maybe they need to have a nap, maybe they're getting sick, anything like that.
Sure.
I think that when you're driving a car and then you start to swerve off the road, the worst thing you can do is overcorrect. Okay? You're seeing massive overcorrection all over our economy right now. So everyone's freaking out. My strategy would be undercorrect. Do the exact opposite of what everyone else is doing. Just 2020 didn't happen. It's anomalous. It was a really tough year. They stole a year from us. We can't get it back. But if we focus on 2020, we're going to burn 21, 22, 23. And if your favorite politician didn't win, you still have to go on vacation. Okay? It's just the way it works.
You don't get to vacation only every 4 or 8
Oh my
years.
God.
Too many years to burn.
That's one of the things I don't like about people having their retirement attached to any type of volatility. You don't get that many years. You can't burn your years. It's back to the kids at the vacation story. You can't preserve your years, redeem the time.
Right, and I know in office sometimes you've shown people visually how many years you worked for a much smaller.
It's a really small percentage of time.
Right, and just how even 1 or 2 years really shrinks down those years that you know you could have been taken. And we use vacations as an example, but whatever
your thing is.
Right.
I mean, gardening, I don't care what it is.
Right.
It's not my You're not coming to my house and telling me how to paint my walls. I don't want to go to your retirement and tell you how to paint your retirement. Okay? I want you to figure out what it is that you want to do and let us help you set about doing it as best you can.
So where would you say that we fit in there? Imagine we're talking to somebody who doesn't feel like their plan is very secure. Where do we fit in? What are we going to be doing to get them back on? Feeling like they have a path and something to focus on and move towards.
Well, we invite them in, virtual call or virtual conference or in the office here. I've been jabbed, so I'm safe now. I would avoid Jake, but me safe, Jake unsafe. We need to unwind the web. You start with having them come in and resetting. When you retired, what did you intend to do?
Okay.
What are your legitimate concerns? What are your more emotional concerns? What has to be planned for? What should be planned for? What we would like to plan for, and prioritize these things out and work to a point to where you look at the way that your retirement lays out on paper and you go, oh, I'm happy if all these things could occur and I was protected from all these things, my retirement would be good. Then we just take that as an overlay and apply math to it.
Right.
Okay, through our planning system, and we'll let you go into more depth about that as we meet with folks, but it's just getting the craziness out, getting some simplicity in, and starting fresh.
Sure. So a lot of people, by the time they've come to us, they say one of the things that put it off was they feel like they have to have all of that organized by the time they see you.
You can't.
Right.
You can't. It's not possible. Retirement would be easy if we could.
Right. They wouldn't need us at all.
Today, you still need us.
Right. I mean, but so that process.
Maybe in the future, but today,
right,
more than ever.
Right. And if you have a box of retirement, paperwork and concerns and issues and goals, bring it in, dump it on the desk, and let you figure it out. All right. So for current clients or for people who just want to know if their plan is secure, it's a personal process, and we just need to have them come in, lay it all out on your workbench.
Better be safe than sorry.
Got it. All right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. And whether you're a current client and feel like you have your plan or you're just getting started, feel free to please give us a call. We're at 904-425-0943. And like Eric said, we can do virtual appointments or we are meeting clients in person, whatever you prefer. And we're going to go ahead and let Eric take his son out to the golf tournament. And he's heading out right now. So bye, everybody. And like Marina said before, keep your eye out for some upcoming events. They'll be virtual for now, but as soon as we can get back to seeing everybody safely,